Hi, I'm Paul, the Running Shoe Guru. This is Marathon Handbook, and on this quite chilly day here in the UK, we're looking at 3 shoes from On. So the shoes we're going to look at today are the On Cloudmonster, the Cloudsurfer, and the latest model, the CloudEclipse. Now, whilst these are all the maximal cushion shoes from the brand, they all vary slightly, and at their time of launch, I think it's safe to say that On considered each one of them their most cushioned and their best cushioned shoe. We're going to look at the difference between them and who each of those shoes might be best for. First up, the first of these shoes to be launched, the Cloudmonster. This features On's very familiar Cloud Tech cushioning midsole. You can see the Cloud elements as they're known, and you can see all the way through them. Now, this shoe kind of resembled a lot of previous On models in that these elements were kind of vertically placed along the horizontal length of the shoe, and they worked in the same manner as a lot of the previous models. With this one, it was just that they were much bigger, it was the highest stack they had, and it was the kind of the deepest, most cushioned shoe in their lineup. And at the time, it was certainly the softest feeling shoe in the On lineup. I know a lot of people that have had On shoes and expected them to be a lot softer than they actually turn out to be once they'd made that purchase. And I know some of the original shoes did feel quite firm, particularly in the forefoot, where there's kind of not really a lot going on in some of the earlier models, particularly under the forefoot section. Now, On themselves do say that all the cushioning comes from the heel, and that you don't really need cushioning on toe off, you want a firmer feel. And that may well be the case in studies, but the perception of runners buying the shoes is they've got these big Cloud elements, they're going to be soft and bouncy, and they weren't necessarily providing that type of feel. But the Cloudmonster aimed to change all that. It gave a different ride. So the Cloudmonster is $170, £160. The stack height is approximately 30 millimeters in the heel, 24 in the forefoot, so a 6 millimeter drop. Men's comes in at 275 grams, women's at 230 grams. So the foam cushioning in the Monster and the Cloud Tech elements are made up of the brand's Helion foam. Despite it sounding like a gas, it isn't actually a gas, it's a made-up name. So it's a foam compound, it's a mixture of elastopolymers, rubbers, etc. Probably EVA based, a little bit firmer feeling than that. All the cushioning, in fact, and the softness of it comes from the compression of the elements. And they do actually compress really easy. You can see them compressing between my finger and thumb here. So when you've got your body weight on there and your heel striking the ground, they will compress. And it still is a comparatively well cushioned shoe compared to a lot of other models in the daily training kind of category. Somewhere similar to a New Balance 880 V13, not as soft as a 1080 V13 from New Balance, similar to perhaps an Asics Cumulus, again, not as soft as the Nimbus, and similar to a Saucony Ride. So it's that kind of feel. It does have On's speedboard technology in there, and that is of plastic, if you like, running the full length of the shoe, and it does give it some kind of a responsive nature in the forefoot and the toe off. It isn't a bouncy shoe, to be honest. Your foot does sink into the heel on impact. It's relatively stable. It is a reasonably high stack. One thing to be aware of, if you are unstable or you normally wear a support shoe, it's probably not the best. The way the shoe is concave here, if you do want to pronate, then this is going to give way a little bit. So not the most stable shoe. Relatively stable, again, similar to something like a Brooks Ghost, a New Balance 880, but certainly not a support shoe by any stretch of the imagination. Very well cushioned, nice feel to it, not the most responsive model. In terms of the ride and who it's for, if you've got those other shoes, you want something different, you want to try an On shoe, then this is right there and comparable with them. But let's now have a look at the Cloudsurfer, which is the 7th generation model of this shoe, and this one changed quite drastically. $160, £150 in the UK. Men's 245 grams, 8.6 ounces, and the women's 205 grams, 7.2 ounces. So very similar in weight categories. At its launch about 6 months ago, this followed up and was a kind of a successor to the Cloudmonster, and On declared it their most cushioned shoe to date, and it was. It did feel softer, it felt bouncier, and it was a nicer ride. And the difference came from the clouds. This alignment of the clouds is called Cloudtech Phase, and essentially it's computer modelled, and On's modelling software allows them to predict how the foam will compress and move and deform underway as it rolls forward. So they tried lots of shapes and sizes of the cloud elements, and in this configuration it was deemed to be the best for cushioning. So essentially you've got this toppling domino effect as the heel sinks in. Again, it squashes really quite easily, and it does feel a lot softer than the Cloudmonster. The first cloud shoe without the speed board, and it does feel lighter, more flexible, more nimble, and more responsive for it. I think it's the combination of this Cloudtech Phase, how it rolls forward smoothly. It just feels a lot more natural to run in, and it is a very nice, soft, everyday trainer. Now, whereas the Monster I felt was comparable to things like a Brooks Ghost, a Saucony Ride, a New Balance 880, this model's a lot softer. The initial feel is softer, the upper feels somehow softer and a nicer kind of fabric knit. Just everything about it is soft and padded around the foot. So it feels more akin to a New Balance 1080. I think the V12, so not the V13 that's just come out, which is very, very soft. It doesn't have that springy feel of PIBA-based foams, so it's not the bouncy feel like a Saucony Triumph, for example, or that category of shoe, but it is very soft, and it does have a reasonably responsive toe off, but not bouncy, if that makes sense. It's not springy. I think it encourages a smoother and a slightly more progressive, kind of natural toe off. It feels nice. You know, it's very easy to run in. I think the Monster is a shoe. At launch, it's an everyday general trainer. You're not going to be doing faster stuff in the Monster, but in the Surfer, then I think it is easier to pick up the pace a little bit, and as you move up to tempo pace, then it does feel nice. It feels really good at easy running. Not a flat out speed shoe, but it feels good. It does feel lighter than the Monster somehow as well, although there's not a lot of difference in it. I think that's just the fit of the upper. Like I say, it's a lot softer, a lot more breathable, and more padding, nice padding in the ankle collar, in the heel, and in the tongue. So it just wraps around the foot nicely. It kind of cozies up to your foot, and it just feels a nice place to be when you slide your foot in. And it's that softer feel that is very welcoming. So a little bit faster and a little bit softer than the Cloudmonster. Finally, the latest model from On, the CloudEclipse. The CloudEclipse is £170, $180, 285 grams, which is around 9.9 ounces in the men's, 240 grams, 8.5 ounces in the women's. 6mm drop, comes in at around 40mm, so we really are maxing it out. It does feel a higher stack on the foot. It is the Helion foam in here, and it's a new configuration of the Cloudtech Phase. You'll see this difference in the heel here. On the initial impact, it seems softer. It's tricky to tell, but I'd say that the cloud elements are larger in the Eclipse, and with the added height, despite the additional stack, with the larger elements, the weight isn't, it doesn't go up massively, but it does feel considerably softer. The main difference is this one has a speed board in it, or shall we say, they're calling it speed board because that's the brand's technology. It's kind of resemblance to a Adidas torsion thing of the 90s, if you like. So this plastic speed board across the midfoot helps create torsional rigidity through the midfoot, and it does feel much more stable than the Surfer. Otherwise, the ride is similar. It's a similar sensation, similar softness, similar kind of toe off and responsiveness. It's just more stable and it's more controlled. It's not a bouncy shoe. It's not an ultra responsive shoe, but it is a shoe that you can pick up the pace in and it feels very much under control. Although I do run a lot in mild support type shoes such as the Adrenaline GTS, New Balance 860, Saucony Guide, Saucony Tempest. I do a lot of running in what I would consider stable neutral shoes as well, the Saucony Kinvara Pro with a full length play. That gives it that stability for me and I like that a lot. Despite the new Balance 1080 V13 being very soft, I've been putting some miles in that, and also the Brooks Ghost Mikes, doing some miles in that. So a lot of these new shoes are quite stable as well. This is one of those, and I would feel very confident and very controlled and secure running more miles in this shoe. I think this one will be coming into my rotation because it just feels a lot more stable, a lot better able and equipped to provide the support that I need. Not a lot of support, but it just keeps things under control, and when I ramp the mileage up, that's what I want to feel. For me, the Eclipse is probably the nicest shoe from On so far. I think if you are a fan of On, everybody's waiting for the new racing shoe, but so far, the Eclipse is the one for me. Typical On upper. I think On's uppers are the best in the business. Very well made, Swiss engineering of course, just nice, they fit well. I'm going to summarise, we've got the Monster. I'm going to say it's an everyday, easy mile type shoe. The Eclipse is that long, stable run type shoe, maybe at tempo pace. And then I'm going to bring in the Surfer for that in-between intervals and stuff like that. This is a nice all-rounder, sits in between. So there you have it. If you want a rotation from On, Monster, easy days, Surfer, tempo days, long run days, the Eclipse. As always, thanks for watching. If you've got any comments, if you're running in any of these shoes, stick them in the comments below. Any questions, again, put them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share where you can. Once again, thank you very much.